How's that Telecom Act of 1996 working out for you, corporate America? Coming to paperback and e-readers, John Haynes, Illuminati. The man who rules the world takes on the head of the global elite in this action-packed, all-new John Haynes series adventure. Pre-order your copy of John Haynes, Illuminati on Amazon.com and online booksellers everywhere. Disney's Pixar is about to lay off 20% of its workers. Now, Disney's Pixar was once a storied brand that was a box office juggernaut, producing hit after hit such as Toy Story, Finding Nemo, A Bug's Life, The Incredibles, and many other iconic films over the 1990s and 2000s and 2010s. However, Disney's Pixar has seemed to have struggled ever since the days before the pandemic, when they fired their CEO, John Lasseter, after a Me Too allegation of harassment or assault. And ever since John Lasseter left Disney's Pixar has been a rudderless ship that has struggled to have the success that it had during the 90s, 2000s, and 2010s. And Disney's Pixar has struggled in recent years during and after the pandemic, and ever since it has struggled at the box office as related to the films it's been producing. Disney's Pixar is no longer the box office juggernaut, and as the result of box office failures like Lightyear that recently came out about a year or 2 years ago, what has happened is Pixar has been taking on major losses in proportion to the astronomical cost of these films. And as a result of Disney's Pixar taking on all of these losses, Disney has no longer been able to maintain the Pixar brand the way they used to under John Lasseter's leadership, and instead what they've had to do is lay off workers, which is what they did in June of 2023, where they laid off 75 workers, but that hasn't been able to stop the losses at Pixar as related to the numerous box office failures that they've had. So what has happened at Pixar, because they've taken on so many losses, is they're starting to lay off a larger number of staff, and they are saying they have to lay off about 20% of their employees out of the 1,200 employees who currently are there. Now, the projection says there might be 240 workers who will be losing their jobs. Now, Disney wants to say that that number is too high, and the number of employees is yet to be determined. But as I see it, any job loss is a bad thing, because when people are out of work, they have to struggle to make a living, and their whole life is put into jeopardy. This is something I know about being unemployed for an extended period of time, but these layoffs really are going to hurt a lot of people, and they are a direct result of Disney CEO Bob Iger taking the company into a really bad direction. Now, the two compounded things that again have led to Disney's Pixar being in this bad place are John Lasseter being forced to resign due to the Me Too movement allegation, which took the direction of Pixar away from its original vision of innovative and unique stories, and Bob Iger taking Disney in a direction when he bought Pixar towards these social justice and far left agendas. Now, this was shown as far back as Incredibles 2, where we had a more feminist agenda pushed in Incredibles 2, and in Toy Story 4, we had the social justice pushed in, and this started the alienation of many longtime Disney Pixar viewers who were used to family-friendly content in their computer-generated animation, and instead of people getting family-friendly content, what they got were a lot of social justice narratives pushed on them And that started people looking to walk away from Disney Pixar films, which were considered safe, wholesome family entertainment. And instead of us getting safe, wholesome family entertainment, what we started to see was Disney pushing a lot of social justice and identity politics, again in films like Incredibles 2, Toy Story 4, and in their Elf and Fantasy Onward, where they were pushing agendas in that film. And then they started to push them further in the film Lightyear, which turned out to be one of Pixar's biggest flops, next to Onward, which basically was the first Pixar flop. And Lightyear became the biggest flop of all time for Pixar, being a $200 million film that bombed at the box office, and other films that were released during the pandemic, such as Soul, Luca, and Turning Red, basically just alienated a lot of viewers on Disney Plus. And they thought that by making that the film Elemental, it would basically try to fix things, but it alienated even more people. And each of these films, costing $100 to $200 million, made for a lot of box office losses. Now with Soul, Luca, and Turning Red, they basically had 3 movies they could not release to theaters that cost over $150 to $200 million. So Disney was basically bleeding red on these films, and possibly would have bled red at the box office on these films because of the social justice and identity politics put into these films, which preached to audiences instead of teaching lessons and giving us characters we could connect to and identify with. And as a result, they wound up alienating a lot of customers who no longer trust the Pixar brand to give them family, wholesome entertainment. No, people no longer trust the Pixar brand, and the brand has suffered a lot of damage. Now, in the aftermath of these layoffs, Disney is trying to reverse its fortunes with a sequel to Inside Out and a film called Elio, but I don't really see those films having much of an impact because Inside Out was a mid-film overall, and nobody really is clamoring for a sequel. And I don't know about Elio, but all I know is that Pixar has really lost its way as a studio, and it's lost its way because they don't have John Lasseter there to set a direction for Pixar where they may have a primary focus on family entertainment. And that's the big problem at Pixar. Without its head to guide it, the body is dying, and it's dying because you have people looking to push their social justice agendas, and that social justice agenda is, again, proving an adage: get woke, go broke. And it shows me what happens when you don't have real competition in American media. What's happening at Pixar is another symptom of the consolidation of corporate media. Consolidation of corporate media that is the result of the Telecom Act of 1996, an act that made it where corporations could own more than one television station, radio station, newspaper, magazine in one area. And as companies like Disney have consolidated media, they have really destroyed competition. And when you destroy competition, you destroy creativity. And that's why Pixar is no longer profitable, because what motivates people to be creative is competition. And it's hard to be competitive when you don't have creative people, because you replace them with activists, and the activists, all they want to do is grift as related to business, as related to hustling, because an activist, all they want to do is push an agenda. And again, agendas don't sell product. No, good stories sell product. But what Disney wanted to do was think they could control people and use media as mind control. Unfortunately, people are resisting. And as people resist, these companies are struggling. And Pixar, which was one of the biggest media companies to come out of the late 1980s when they first won their Oscar for Tin Toy, is now on a decline that is just as bad as Disney was in the 70s and the early 80s. And it's that way because, again, Pixar needs a visionary. It needs somebody like John Lasseter to lead the brand and pick better stories, pick family-friendly stories, stories that don't have political agendas, and stories that resonate and connect with people. That's what people want from Pixar. But what we got from Pixar these days are very middling and bland stories that are more about social justice agendas, identity politics, representation, but not about representing substance of story. And that's why Disney's Pixar has gone from being an icon of 21st century entertainment to becoming a footnote towards the end of the century. Now, if you want to pick up some of my action-packed fantasy fiction on the SJS Direct imprint that is all ages friendly, you can find the books of the Isis series, the Esteem series, the John Haynes series, the books of the Spinsterella trilogy, my vampire novel Eternal Night, or my black sorority novel The Thetas, or my business novel Recipe for Success, or my screenplay books all about Marilyn and all about Nikki on Amazon.com in paperback and Kindle format. You can also find them at other online booksellers like Smashwords, the iBookstore, and Google Play. And if you want to check out my first full comic, John Haynes at Death's Door, you can find that on Lulu.com in paperback edition and for the same price as the 2022 Kickstarter. And if you want to check out my first digital comic, Esteem No Good Deed, with great art by Bill Walko, you can find that comic on Kindle for 99 cents or in the back of the Esteem series book, Esteem Blast from the Past. And if you want to see me do more videos about the entertainment industry, you can send a donation to the Patreon, the PayPal, or the Cash App by clicking the links in the description box. That's all I have to say for this video. You can comment, rate, and subscribe. Now available in paperback and Kindle Unlimited, Esteem The Sands of Time. It's action and adventure in ancient Egypt in this terrific teen time travel romance. Get your copy of Esteem The Sands of Time at your favorite online bookseller today. Now available in paperback and e-readers, The Temptation of John Haynes. Give in to temptation and pick up this action-packed African-American paranormal romance. Get The Temptation of John Haynes in paperback and e-readers today. Support Black-owned and Black-operated digital broadcast media. www.niceradionetwork.com. Nice Radio Network, broadcasting 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.